And there's another bouncer incident that we're still conducting follow-up. This is from Fort Knox on August 21st, which it appears that a bouncer assaulted a patron. That investigation is still open. A simple assault report has been filed. So I'll have to, we'll follow that up and provide some input at a future meeting. In either event, other than the employees themselves, there doesn't appear to be any licensure issue, but I just wanted to make you aware that we're seeing some of that as we conduct some of these checks and calls for service.
So Chief, can I ask, how this goes is if anybody has any questions about any of these, they can contact you, and you could actually refer them on to the individual officer that was involved. Is that how you'd like us to proceed, or how?
No. If they've got questions, I've got additional information I can answer. If there's specific questions on any one of these that we've sent.
No, I right now we can do that, but I'm just saying in between meetings, if there's any of these, because like to give you an example, I just got them today. So
Okay.
if I'm going through it and if I have a question, I can contact you and we can go.
Sure. You can email me with any particular questions, and
Okay.
I'll get you a response on that.
So I just wanted to make, obviously we can ask any questions that you have today, but if you're going through these and you have any specific things, if that's all right with you, Chief, I think that'd be a good plan.
Sure.
Thank you.
Either that or even at the next meeting, I can provide
Okay.
an update. We had an overabundance. My admin assistant was on vacation, so we kind of had a pile up in terms of getting them a little more quicker to liquor control.
Well, and I want to thank you, Chief. We didn't do this in the past, and I think this is really good information for everybody to have. But I will say, from my perspective, I haven't had a chance to look through them all.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's voluminous. Yeah.
And I might have some questions. So
Understood.
I want to make sure everybody feels the same way, that they're welcome to contact you, and you can give the specific. You have different officers in charge of the different locations, and they can answer questions too. But you'll refer us.
Correct. Do not contact the officers. I'll get you your updates.
I appreciate that. Steve, you look like you're coming up to add some to the, and I didn't mean to cut anybody off, but so, just so we have that, just so you know that you're welcome to ask questions, I think that's very important. Steve?
Yeah, just one added a walk-up item here. Preston Esmeyer from the Health Department wanted me to mention that server training is going virtual now, moving forward until the foreseeable future. So he just wanted that announcement to be made. Apologize for not getting the information to you guys sooner, but like the chief said, we had somebody on vacation, so.
That's great, and I think the server training, if you wouldn't mind either sending us the itinerary or something like that, so we could have that, I'd appreciate that, just when the upcoming, if the health department can get that to us, just for our own information. I'm sure it's online already somewhere, but if that's okay, Steve, I'd appreciate it.
I believe it's myservertraining.org.
Okay, thank you very much. Very good. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, we will now move on to our, I guess if it's okay, we will adjourn this meeting and then we'll start. So do we have a motion to adjourn the liquor control meeting?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So that concludes the liquor control for today, and the next item will be our hearing with the Africa Bar and Restaurant.
Excuse me, if I could ask for just a 5-minute break here, if I have just a couple of minutes, I'd appreciate it.
We will take a 5-minute break because Nancy told us we needed a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good. So we will begin our next item, and maybe you can, I'll just real quick give the order. Steve will talk first, then the representatives of Africa, and then the police department, if that's okay with you. That's kind of our order, if that's all right.
That's all right.
Okay, so Steve, why don't you start us off?
Okay, thank you, Commissioner, and want to welcome the Liquor Control Board to this meeting of the reapplication hearing for the African International Restaurant and Nightclub. And so my portion of this is going to kind of walk through the timeline and how we got here, and then with just a few other comments, and then we'll move forward. So back on June 29th, there was a Liquor Control Board special meeting at 2 p.m. During that meeting, after the evidence presented, the Liquor Control Board made a recommendation of a 60-day suspension of the license. Just 2 days later, on July 1st at noon, the City Commission held a special meeting and recommended immediate suspension of the license until the hearing was held. The rest of July, there were a number of meetings and emails, conversations back and forth. On July 27th at 11:30, the City Commission held a special meeting during which there was a hearing, finding of fact, and the recommendation to have the license remain suspended until a reapplication has been processed, and that's kind of what gets us here. After that meeting, or after that special City Commission meeting, I gave the representatives of the club, so at various times we're going to call it Africa Club or Club Africa, different things like that. But anyway, I gave them a blank application and a copy of their 2019 application. A couple of days later, on July 29th, received a reapplication. And in your packet, it's called reapplication number 1. After we received that reapplication, was reviewed with the chief. We highlighted a number of omissions and discrepancies, and we asked them to follow up. We involved Dr. Hogan as kind of an intermediary to follow up with the parties, and they then brought back a day later application number 2, and so application number 2 was then forwarded to the police department, and the police department did their background check based on that. So then on August 11th, the police report became available, and on August 12th, the city attorney, Mr. Eric Johnson, with Assistant City Administrator Michael Redlinger, met with the representatives of Club Africa to discuss the findings of the police department. On August 16th, I received an email notification from Mr. Omani that Mr. Omani and Mr. Schultz would both be removed from the application. And then later, I received another application, so it's August 20th now, and we received application number 3. And on that one, Mr. Omani's name has been removed. So I think that's most of the, well, no, let me, I'm sorry. I'm not very skilled at this. I'm not an attorney. I'm a humble civil servant here, so just bear with me if you will. So on August 24th, Mr. Omani directs me to sign the application indicating I had received it. I did do that because we had received it. On August 30th, Mr. Omani requests me to have the police chief sign the application, and obviously I couldn't sign that or make any representations for the police chief. On August 31st, an attorney was engaged, which early in the meetings in July, I know Commissioner Pepcorn was in some of those meetings, and we encouraged them to hire an attorney and have legal representation. So they did that. And then on September 10th, so last Friday, we received application number 4. So you can see that it's been kind of a moving process. Now, before I turn this over to the chief or to the next point here, I want to go back to the original application, if you will bear with me. In 2019, we received an application to transfer the liquor license from Firebox to African International Restaurant and Nightclub. It was received and it was reviewed, and at that time, Francis Brown and Mr. Schultz were on the application. Francis Brown was not eligible to possess a liquor license due to a previous felony conviction. And so at that time, they changed the license. They requested that Francis' wife be listed as the owner-manager, and included in your packet is documentation where they are stating that Francis will no longer have anything to do with the business as owner or manager. And then I think it's important to recall from the previous presentation that the police chief made, the calls for service in which Francis portrayed himself as manager or as owner, and also in this packet in the back of the one that looks like this, there is the most recent renewal application in which Mr. Brown has listed himself as manager at the last page of that. And I think it's important to note that at that time in 2019, the Liquor Control Board recommended the City Commission to deny the liquor license application. The City Commission decided to go ahead and approve that application. And so I guess those are the points that I wanted to bring forward at this time. And I don't know if there are any questions in the timeline on how things have kind of evolved here.
So I think that was good, Steve, and I think what we'll do is we'll let the representatives of Africa speak next, and then if there's any questions, we'll follow up if that's okay with everyone. So if you want to introduce yourself and then give your perspective, if that's okay.
Yes,
begin.
thank
Go
you.
ahead.
My name is Adam Richard. I'm an attorney with the Broodvik Law Office out of Hillsborough, North Dakota. Brett Broodvik is appearing remotely from Chandler, Arizona. I want to first thank everybody for the opportunity to present our client's progress and where we have come since the July 1st meeting. We are in the belief that people, just like people, businesses should be measured by their not by their previous deficiencies, but by their willingness to address and resolve them. Club Africa is no different. Promising strides have been made to redress the concerns reported after the previous hearing, and we are eager to share our progress. Mr. Sprague gave a great rendition of the timeline. I would like to address the issue of the multiple applications. Broodvik Law Office was hired on August 30th, August 31st hearing. We requested a continuance as the application to be considered at that hearing was incomplete and had inaccurate information. We have worked with Club Africa to provide the Liquor Control Board and City Commission with a complete, thorough, and accurate application to consider for a liquor license moving forward. There is individuals that are named on past liquor license that have no longer any affiliation with Club Africa. I would like to ask Mr. Broodvik if he has any other questions or comments regarding just the process with this application before moving forward with some of the other changes that Club Africa has made.
Yeah, so can you guys hear me okay there?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks for having us today. Appreciate it very much. And just to expound on what Adam had said to you guys there, presented to you, on August 31st, we made a specific request. We got involved late in the game here, so you got to bear with us, but we want to help these guys do this right, and that's why they asked us to get involved. And I think the city was happy to have us get involved so we can try and get this going the right direction. One of the things that we've been seeing here is when we requested on August 31st that we be able to withdraw our application from July 29th, when we communicated with the city attorney's office and with, I guess indirectly, Mr. Sprague, what we were told was the application that was going to be acted upon was the July 29th application. And looking back at some of the correspondence, the Africa Cafe representatives had asked for the ability to amend their application on August 16th, and the response that they got from the city auditor's office was they can't. That basically they said that the reapplication that was submitted on July 29th is the one that's going to be considered. The problem is it wasn't accurate. And so when we got involved and saw this, we asked to pull our name off of the August 31st hearing to allow us to withdraw the July 29th application and to submit a new application that was current and correct and complete. And that's what we did, and that's what we understood. And so the September 10th application, I guess my first question is, do you guys all have a copy of the application that we actually assisted with and submitted on September 10th?
Yes, we do. And that's number 4 of our, that's
Yep.
the number 4.
Yep.
Yep, we do.
And our request is, I understand that, Mr. Sprague indicated there was, kind of sounds like there's a lot of back and forth. They've been attempting to get to this since July 27th when the suspension was continued so they could reapply. They wanted to get the current information in there, and basically that's what we did. We took a look at the application, found it hard to read ourselves, and told them, I think that we can help you do this in a presentable form where the Liquor Control Board and the commissioners can look at this objectively and understand it. And so that's what we tried to do with number 4. And what we asked the city attorney's office was that we be allowed to present this at this hearing and that this be the one that's considered because it's accurate. What we've been told, and I feel like some roadblocks are being thrown up here, and I'm not sure why, but is that the only application to be considered by the Liquor Control Board is going to be the 29th one. So we're requesting that the 4th application you have, which was the one that we professionally helped them with, be the one that's considered. And I think Adam can point out probably some of the distinctions. They're not too great, but I think we can explain some of the chief's concerns. And really what we're trying to do, guys, is present to you, and the Africa Cafe is trying to get the management structure in place that's going to allow them to operate this thing and be good neighbors and operate under the the way that the city of Fargo would expect them to operate. And that's what our goal is. We're trying to be good neighbors here, and we're trying to make sure that this gets done right. And we just want a chance to rehabilitate that. And so with that, I'm going to have Adam kind of discuss maybe some of the distinctions in the applications, but ultimately we'd like you to focus on our current one.
Thank you, Brett. So just addressing some of the issues and concerns that Chief Zabolski had from his investigative report, I'd like to first address Mr. Omani's involvement with International African Nightclub. Mr. Omani has no affiliation with this Club Africa anymore. Club Africa understood the Chief's concerns with Mr. Omani and took it upon themselves to alleviate that concern moving forward. I would like to address the Chief's concerns regarding Bolu Brown's her credit. There was one payment of $313 that was still outstanding. I do have a work here. I have. Do I slide it in? I'm not sure.
Steve, if we want to, we could maybe move it over to this one.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
So this is just a receipt showing the balance is paid and it is current as zero. Right now, Bolu Brown she has addressed all of her credit issues. She is a good citizen. She is a nurse. She is ready to watch this business succeed. She is ready to take over the business as in a manager role to ensure the safety of patrons and ensure that all the patrons enjoy their time in the club. Finally, I would like to just address Mr. Schultz. What was the concern about Mr. Schultz was the non-disclosure of the disorderly conduct charge from 2000 and 2020. I would like to just talk a little bit about that charge and the sentencing from that charge. What I have put on the screen is the order of disposition from the West Fargo Municipal Court. As you can see, Mr. Schultz had a deferred imposition of sentence, and the municipal court judge wrote sentence deferred 6 months. But as you can see, another highlighted portion says 360 days. There was a confusion here in this order. Mr. Schultz believed he had a 6-month deferred. And as you can see, As you can see by the court docket, I zoom in a little bit there, but you can now see that there is that year of the one unsupervised probation. However, during this time, Mr. Schultz reasonably believed that he had a 6-month deferred. Now, the beauty of a deferred imposition of sentence in criminal law is being able to give defendants a second chance, being able to show prosecutors, the city, state, that they have the opportunity to be rehabilitated from that offense. Mr. Schultz, his only requirement was to pay $700, which he did. It's evident. It's evidenced right here on this line. He paid in January of 21. Now, under Rule 32.1 of the North Dakota Rules of Criminal Procedure, a deferred imposition of sentence, what entails in that is after 61 days, the defendant, after the deferred period and the appeal time of 61 days, the defendant has the opportunity to have his guilty plea withdrawn or set aside, the case is dismissed, and the record is sealed. Mr. Schultz reasonably believed all 3 of those had occurred when they submitted the July 29th application. I understand that in the chief's investigation report, Mr. Schultz states that he did not receive that page. However, there was, in his mind, in his reasonable mind, he did not believe that anything was changed from the 2019 application because it was a 6-month deferred and he believed this guilty plea was withdrawn at that point. Finally, I want to address the changes that the restaurant has implemented themselves, and you can see on the final 3 pages of the September 10th, 2021 application that our office submitted. You'll see a business plan. You'll see a complete list of employees. Now, there's 2 employees who don't currently have server training, but they are set up for server training coming up here September 22nd, and we will provide the server training cards at that point. You see that there is a changes to business operations to ensure the safety of the patrons inside the club. You see the security team code of conduct, and you also see the communication channels. We have worked with Club Africa to ensure that we are making this business and rehabilitate to be a successful asset in Fargo. International Africa Nightclub is a unique, exciting atmosphere to bring to this town, and I believe that it is imperative that they are able to function and that we have this unique place in our town. And finally, Club Africa recognizes that its ambition is to stand as a business that is exemplary of the city of Fargo's values, and like Mr. Brudvik said earlier, to be a good neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so if there's any comments or questions, we can do that. Otherwise, we'll have the chief speak next. And then if there's any comments or questions, we can do that at that time as well. So Chief, you're up next.
Commissioner Pepcorn, it's Brett
Yes.
here. Can you guys hear me okay? I wanted to add just a couple corrections too, and I didn't do that when I spoke last time, but Mr. Sprague, he indicated that Francis was identified as the manager on the application. None of our applications since July 29th, the one we submitted, the number 4, and the intent is, and the manager is Baloo Brown, not Francis. I'm not sure where he saw that, but that's not correct. If you look closer at that, the manager is Baloo. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
No, I appreciate that clarification.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Dave, I have one question that I was hoping to ask the representatives for the nightclub.
Sure.
They mentioned in the last 3 pages of the application that they would be employing, they would hire security guards as official employees, they would file tax paperwork and all that stuff. Do they have any of those security guards hired now? And if so, how many?
So five are hired currently.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? Otherwise, we'll move on to the chief.
Thank you, sir. I think just to start out, in terms of clarifying the record, certainly recognize that the law firm came on at the 11th hour. And to clarify, as we prepared for the August 31st special meeting, on August 12th, I sent to the Africa Liquor Club management team my memorandum outlining not only the reasons for concerns in terms of the establishment being run by these individuals, but several pieces of outright false information that were provided during that application that was sent to them on August 12th. So on August 16th, when the law firm first looked at it, it's not that they needed to fix the application. And so some of the things that I need to bring to your attention are inseparable from the July 29th application, because there are several pieces of information that have been given either falsely or misleading or just incorrect. From the looking at the newest application, let's talk about Mr. Schultz. In terms of my concerns about his ability to operate the establishment as an owner. And I also would want to point out that both Miss Brown or Mrs. Brown and Mr. Schultz have been the owners of this establishment for several years. They were the owners when all of the incidents that gave rise to the initial alcohol suspension occurred. They continued to be the owners throughout several different iterations of applications, and they once again come forward to this board requesting to retain ownership of an operation in which we've had several issues and public safety concerns. In terms of false information, on the July 29th application, Mr. Schultz failed to disclose his arrest in West Fargo. I understand that from a court perspective, that might be a deferred prosecution, but it's the conduct in which we look at that we determine whether or not he would be an appropriate owner or operator of a licensed liquor establishment in the city of Fargo. Now, in terms of, I think the attorney here, I forget his name, just mentioned that Mr. Schultz reasonably believed that this had been deferred and was no longer a record, but when he talked to our investigator, he told him that he just didn't receive that piece of the application. There were also pieces of the application in which Mr. Schultz's middle name was either not there or was present. There was no notarized signature as required by the application. So I'm not sure which explanation of that failure to disclose that arrest is accurate, but either way, both can't be true. In terms of the conduct, I think it's important for the board to recognize that this was a disorderly conduct that was a result of West Fargo officers being sent to a disturbance at an apartment at 3:15 in the morning. And that upon arrival, Mr. Schultz was identified as an actor who had potentially caused property damage to the reporting person's phone, as this individual was attempting to record the loud party that was occurring in the apartment building involving many people and alcohol. And that when the officers attempted to stop Mr. Schultz in uniform, he fled on foot. They chased him through the building and out into the parking lot until he subsequently stopped and was placed in custody. He was uncooperative with the officers, refused to identify himself. When handcuffed and attempted to conduct a search incident to arrest, became aggressive and pushed up against the officers. And during his ride to the jail with the female officer of a different ethnicity, he expressed a tirade of ethnic and gender derogatory epithets and expletives. The details are in the offense report, but I don't think the cooperation level that was shown, and then he got into a scuffle with the jail staff when he got to Cass County, indicates in any fashion that Mr. Schultz is an appropriate person to operate or oversee a licensed liquor establishment. And this is not Mr. Schultz's first run-in with the law. He has a prior criminal record that is more dated than the 2020 contact, but the behavior is consistent. And the behavior is also consistent with what we have seen from the operations of the Africa Club in terms of the level of cooperation with law enforcement and or deception. So that's that incident. On the new application with legal assistance, he does add that on there, but the conduct itself is the issue. In terms of Mrs. Brown, and going back to the statement made by the auditor earlier, when this license was initially issued, and due to past record, Francis Brown explicitly signed some documentation indicating that he would not be the manager. But in fact, he did become the manager and was so up until the time of suspension of this license. In the new application, Ms. Brown indicates that her business email is, I won't put the email publicly, but it is exactly the email that is associated to Francis Brown. I verified with the auditor that this is Francis Brown email that he has used on prior applications as well. So again, I guess I question the veracity of that information and whether or not we are truly separating from the issues we have had with Francis Brown as the manager. I would direct you to page 5 of the application. You'll again see the same email address, and you'll see Ms. Brown's date of birth. And I won't give that out publicly, but if you look at the July 29th application, the birth date is different. And it's handwritten in and signed on the July 29th application by Ms. Brown. So we have two different birth dates over two different applications. Ms. Brown has a North Dakota license that is under a maiden name. That was a piece of information that we also had to ask for in the July 29th application because it was omitted. By North Dakota Century Code, a person has 10 days to change their license once legally married, so it is not legal for her to have that license in her maiden name. On page 6, there's a question about listing federal, state, and local licenses that you formerly held or have an interest in. She lists nothing. And it says, have any of them been suspended or revoked? She checks no, when in fact, as an owner of the Africa Club, her license is currently suspended. Mr. Schultz, to his credit, properly answers that question. He lists that the current license is suspended and then checks yes for the revocation and suspension question. On page 7 of this new application, the newest one, where it says operator manager information. The question is, are you going to operate/manage this business personally? If no, who will operate or manage it? The box is checked yes, but then below that it lists Imbala Brown allegedly as the manager, again with Francis Brown's email. I would assume that that is answered by Mr. Schultz, although it's really unable to determine it. I assume if Imbala answered that question, she wouldn't list herself because she would just put yes. On page 9 of the application, under the operational and financial issues, if you look at the second paragraph, the second sentence, this is a continuation of the restaurant concept which I operated as Liberian Merry-Go-Round at 855 45th Street South. In checking with the auditor, the only operator of the Liberian Merry-Go-Round was Francis Brown. So this appears to be either a false statement or I don't know who wrote this, but I operated is certainly not Mrs. Brown or Mr. Schultz. On page 10 of the application, there's a question. What is your total business indebtedness for the entity, including lease costs? Typed in is confidential under North Dakota Century Code 44-04-18.4. This is improper in checking with the city attorney. There is no legal remedy or no legal reason not to properly fill out this question. And then the question about the creditor representing more than 10% is not answered as well. On page 17 of the application, this is an employee roster made out by Mr. Brudvik, apparently where it lists Imbala Brown as a date of hire August 31st, 2021, which would mean she was hired during the suspension, even though Ms. Brown has been an owner of this establishment for many years. And in her background investigation from the July 29th application indicated that she's a full-time nurse, goes to school online, and also works at the bar. That was prior to August 31st. And then on the page where it lists a roster and it talks about who is server trained, there's no page number. It's one of 3 of the Africa International Restaurant and Nightclub handout that they provided. It lists several people as being server trained. In checking with the health department, Gurkuku Green, who according to this is server trained until October of 2023, they have no record of his server training. Tarnell Andrews, who says he is good until September of 2024, they have no record of Tarnell Andrews receiving server training. So the only person that actually is currently server trained is Ole Denua. So again, that's false information provided on this report. In addition to Ms. Brown's credit issues, when interviewed by our investigator on August 10th, she indicated that she was preparing to get payment plans in order for her other outstanding credit. Mr. Schultz's credit is also very concerning in terms of the large amount of credit card debt and other after 30-day notices. So I think absent any questions, that would conclude my presentation. But as I indicated in the August 11th memorandum that the Africa Club personnel received, outlining the false information and reasons for my recommendation of denial, the police department today still strongly recommends denial of licensure to these individuals based on false information that was provided and based on their Section 10, which I would suggest indicates that their ability to serve alcoholic beverage in the protection of the public interest is in question.
Thank you very much, Chief. And so now, I don't know if there's any questions or any further comments.
Yes, I got a question.
Sure.
So the police chief said that the investigator asked me about my credit and I said I'm gonna make payment plan. That is not true. I told the investigator that I already make payment plan. So I just want that to be corrected. And for the email address, we use the same email address. If the city don't want that, I can give another email address. And I only got one birth year, and that's 74. So I don't know where the mistake came from.
Thank you.
If I may just address a few things as well, thank you. I believe the birth date might have just been, it was handwritten, might have been miswritten. I would like to address the chief's comment on Ms. Brown's hire date of August 31st. She's hired as a general manager of the establishment. You know, she may have been employee helping out here and there. She still is a CNA with Edgewood Vista. However, the plan is that if the liquor license is approved, she will leave that position and assume a full position with the bar and restaurant. I'd also like to address with Mr. Andrews. I do have, Abraham. I do have I think it was I might have written it wrong. His last name is Abraham, Abraham, and that Tarnell Abraham, I don't know if he goes by another name of Andrews, but he was successfully completed server training on September 1st, 2021. And then if Mr. Brudvik has anything else to add, I will turn it over to him as well.
Well, and I would just like to add, and again, you know, we're not claiming that these folks were perfect. We're saying they want to do this right, and I think that they deserve the opportunity to try and do it right. Baloo will be a good manager. They're confident in her abilities. And a lot of what the chief pointed out, in my opinion, is really nitpicking. I question whether everybody else goes under the same scrutiny as the Africa Cafe is under right now. If you recall, in the beginning, the suspension hearing was for some pretty egregious events that turned out to not be what happened at Africa Cafe, as in a shooting and also a party bus situation, which I think the chief acknowledged in the July 1st City Commission meeting were not the case. So they were ultimately suspended for loud noise complaints. I know evidence has been provided to you guys showing different bars in town, some that have had in the neighborhood of 500 complaints since the first of the year, some between 100 and 200, which all exceed what the Africa Cafe has done. So we're asking that they be treated the same and that they be allowed the opportunity to make this go. I think that they can do it. I think it's a good establishment. And forgetting a middle name or sharing an address with your spouse shouldn't be a reason to deny an application. There's a difference between false statements and mistake, and sometimes mistakes happen. And I think, you know, Adam and I put this application together for him with the information. Again, we came on in the 11th hour. We did our very best to get it in because we knew you needed it by the 15th. We got involved not on August 16th, like the chief said. We got involved on August 30th or 31st. And I really believe these guys want to do it right. So we ask that you treat them like you treat anybody else, and please consider giving them the opportunity to show you they can do this right. And thank you very much for letting us be here.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? Nancy, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you look like you're wishing to say something at a point. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I guess my only comment was in response to Mr. Fredvik's comments on license withdrawal and comments from council. I disagree with his statements, but in any event, we are at the same place in that the current license is being considered, which is what council's request was. And I had indicated that it was not my decision as to whether or not the others are withdrawn. And in fact, the credit reports and background checks that were signed at that time are relevant to this license. And so it is kind of the summary timeline as was presented.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? And I guess online, if there's any other comments or questions, now's the time. Do you have anything else to add?
Nothing further from me. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the Liquor Control Board?
I have a question, if possible, in one of the correspondences between Steve and one of the former owners of the club, they mentioned whether or not this counted as a transfer of a license versus just the removal of somebody from the license. Nancy, would you be willing to speak to that?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand your question. Are you asking what will happen if this license is not reissued, or the suspension is turned to a revocation? I'm not sure I understood your question. I'm sorry.
Lydia, can you repeat that? We were having a little bit of a technical issue, and so if you could repeat that, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. My apologies if I'm coming in a little fuzzy. There seemed to be some confusion about whether if owners are removed from a license, does that count as a license transfer or not? I just wanted to make sure that it is not a transfer if it is renewed.
It is my understanding that the same individuals that were identified in the earlier license are again identified as the owners of this license. On the reapplication, Mr. Schultz and Ms. Brown.
Thank you.
That
Do you have
is-
anything
that is
to add?
correct. I'm just correct.
Any other comments or questions? I guess I'll try to speak briefly, and I would say I was on the Liquor Control Board when we first approved this. The chief at that time was Dave Todd. He recommended against it. And from my perspective, this is a great asset for our town. But to me, you have to have a change in management. And what I was hoping would happen was that you would change this. And to me, it looks like the exact same roster almost. And so to me, this is an asset to our community. And I do appreciate having a law firm involved because this is very important. This is a big asset for our city, but you have to have people that run this as a professional business, and it has to be safe. And I think you agree with that. But when I look, I see a lot of the same names on the roster, and that's what causes me pause, if that makes sense. And what I was hoping was during this, obviously, this has been a huge economic, I was hoping you'd have some self-reflection and have a new group. And basically, if you look, this is a lot of the same names, and I guess that's what causes me pause. And so, go ahead.
Yep, thank you. And if I could speak on that, I think it might be important to kind of distinguish some of the roles, especially of the owners. Mr. Schultz is kind of a quiet partner, so to speak. He runs his own business called Legends of Africa. He's kind of, he doesn't really oversee, I guess, the sale of the liquor, so to speak. Ms. Brown here is the main asset that we're adding to this. She is going to be taking over a big role here, and that's going to be the big change. She is a wonderful asset to this business, and she is going to make sure that it runs safely. She's been working with as a CNA for years. On top of that, she does work with, say some prescription narcotics with her patients. And now I know it's maybe different than alcohol and liquor. However, I believe that she has the capability and the ability to ensure safety and that liquor is consumed responsibly and used responsibly in the establishment when they are operating. I believe that Baloo Brown is the perfect candidate to turn this business around, and like you said, is a great asset, and to make this asset even more exciting to the community. I believe she has what it takes, and right now she is working as a full-time CNA. However, if this liquor license is approved, she will step away from that position. And you've heard a little bit from her today as well. And so I think it's good to kind of distinguish some of those roles and to know where, know where the owners and the manager and what her role really will be here. The face of this nightclub really is going to be Miss Brown, and Mr. Schultz is kind of on the back end of it. And kind of speaking on Mr. Schultz's disorderly conduct, when we came in, when Brudvik Law came in, we did see that it was for a year, and that's when we did disclose it. We think there was some mess there, and again, his conduct from that night, he shouldn't be defined based on that conduct. He's rehabilitated himself now. So thank you.
Okay.
And if I may, Commissioner Pepcorn,
Sure.
if you notice in the chief's summary in his August 11th report, his sole purpose is the grave concerns over Mr. Amani's ability to run this establishment safely. He doesn't indicate any grave concerns about Mr. Schultz, and Mr. Schultz isn't running the place. He's an owner and a supporter. And Baloo Brown's a brand new manager. The August 31st date is because she's a general manager at this point. She's never been the manager. She's never been in charge. And I just want to clarify that there is a difference here. And I understand what you're saying, but there is a difference. This is a different person here. And to address the chief's comments, the grave concerns over Mr. Amani's ability to run this should have been alleviated. And that's his main comment. So thank you.
Mr. Pipeline,
Yep.
I believe Ms. Brown just wants to say a few words.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I decided to be the manager because I want things to run right. I never been in trouble, and when it comes to problem, I don't like it. So this is why I decided to be the manager and make sure everything go right. And I have all my money into this business, and I work hard to earn those money. So I want to make sure everything run fine. This is why I decide to be manager, to be there and see that thing run smoothly. Thank you.
Very good. We appreciate your comments. Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions?
I have one more question. Chief Zabolski mentioned 2 people who may not have received server training. The representatives for African Nightclub mentioned that this might be due to one name discrepancy. Could you address the other?
Yes, I don't have, I guess, any information regarding Miss Green.
Maybe I can ask you, no matter how we act today, if you could follow up on that and then get back
course.
to us, we'd appreciate that.
Of course.
Okay.
And it could be just a misspelling of name or something, but I'll follow up on that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, this is a very difficult topic and a very difficult decision. So if we need to have a break and think about it, we can. If anybody wishes to add any comments, now's the time.
I guess I have a question for Steve. So what would be the process from here if we were to recommend that the license be revoked? Was it then go to the city council, or what's the next step?
Yes, no matter what your decision is here, the recommendation will go to city commission. That meeting has been scheduled for Monday, the 20th?
At 4.
At 4 o'clock, yes. Yep.
Commissioner Pepcorn, can I ask a question on that as well?
Absolutely.
So how does that work with the obviously the liquor license is an asset. I mean, this is an asset that was purchased from Firebox, and so it was an asset, and that they continue to purchase from Firebox. And if it's revoked, I mean, can the suspension be continued so they have an opportunity to market this and sell it to a third party, or to go back to Firebox, or how does that work if there is? And we're asking for there not to be. Obviously, we think they should have an opportunity to do this. I think that they need the opportunity to make this right. This shouldn't be a one strike and you're out deal. But that being said, can you speak to how that works?
Yes, and I'll have Steve speak to that. Can you clarify that, Steve?
Yes, so if this license were to be revoked, the license would come back to the city. The Firebox would have no interest, and African International Restaurant and Nightclub would have no interest in the license any further.
Okay, so I mean that's pretty damaging to anybody, and obviously it's a pretty serious situation. So, and I don't know which way you guys are going to go, but if in fact that's a direction you take, we would request respectfully that rather than revoke the license, it be the suspension be continued so something can be done with that license.
Well, and that's why a long time ago I requested that they have legal representation, and they didn't have legal representation until about 20 days ago, and that was a big mistake.
I'm curious. I'm sorry if this is interrupting, but if our options are is there an option where we could provisionally see how? Because I'm anxious to see these plans in action. It seems like they've addressed a lot of the issues about employees. I'm very curious about the server license or the servers training to see that employees are being, trained correctly. So that's why I'm asking so many questions about it. But is there a provisional option?
Nancy, do you have an answer for that?
Not that I am aware of. I mean, it's they have a license or they don't have a license, and then their requirements are set out by the ordinances to violations, and obviously breach of the peace and protection has other alternatives and considerations. So I'm not aware of a conditional license that would result in any matrix that would result in either suspension or revocation apart from what's already in the existing ordinances.
Thank you, Nancy. That makes sense.
Do we have anyone else that had a comment? Brett, you look like you are thinking about a comment.
Well, I do have document. Is there a way to share my screen or no? I don't know. I haven't used this system before, but I guess what I could do if I can't share it is I can explain it to you. But there was mention of the servers that weren't on the Cask Public Health roster for having training. I have certificates for 3 of them, and I'd like to just at least mention those names. And if I can, I could email these to Nancy or something after the deal so you have them. But Zolay server training was done on May 5th, 2021, and that's good for 3 years. And I think, Adam, maybe you can address which ones I'm missing. But Terrell Abraham, I have that, so it must have been a spelling issue. He did his training on September 1st, 2021. That's 3 years. So I have that certificate that I can provide. And I also have one for, let's see, Zolay.
That's great. That's great, Brett. And you can contact us. We're going to do that follow up anyway, and so we will
Okay.
make sure we get all those corrected and make sure we have the right ones in order.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
I guess I have some concerns as far as Ms. Brown being manager. And I understand and I sense your passion to make this work. And there have been some serious infractions against Club Africa in the past. And I know you want this to work, but I don't have a level of confidence that I'm comfortable with that you're able to step into a manager position without having some experience of management in the past, and how this is going to be addressed.
Okay, I have worked as a lead in many areas that I work. And when I get a lead position, I make sure everything is perfect. You can check my background as working to areas. They will tell you the kind of work I do. And I'm really passionate about this because I want it to work. Yeah. And I will be doing my service training on the 22nd of September.
Yes. Go ahead, Robert.
I really have to agree with your statement. I really have to agree with your statement, Kay. The nightclub business is more than just striving for excellence, as you obviously do in your current career. There's a lot of problems there, and there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. I think the business plan is just a list of issues. There is really no business plan here. I think that another step would be how quick can we get an actual application? If we can't get an application that's correct with the proper data, how can we move on to the next step? I think that to say that the police chief has been nitpicking issues is way out of bounds with what's gone on here and the amount of time and effort that's been spent with the problems here. The problems are serious. We're talking about over-serving, we're talking about guns, we're talking about weapons, fights, all types of things. These are not things that somebody without experience can come in and change that culture. I believe that from my 40 years of experience in the liquor business. So I appreciate your comment, Kay. I think there's a lot more that needs to be talked about here.
Okay, can I say something?
Sure.
I know I may not have that experience, but I can learn and do better. If another person have experience and they come in and they cause more problem, it will be problem. I want to be there and make sure things run right. That's the difference right now. Thank you.
And if I may just add, I believe what Ms. Brown is adding here, she's looking for the opportunity to show you that this restaurant and establishment can be the asset that we want it to be in the city of Fargo. She was asking for that opportunity. The changes in that business plan were to address the issues regarding Fargo Municipal Code 25-1211, the requirements for a licensed premises. All of the business operations we implemented and the Club Africa implemented to abide by those requirements under that municipal code, and just to ensure the safety going forward. I understand the concerns with Ms. Brown's lack of experience in this business. However, she does have the enthusiasm, the motivation to do well, and to show you that this business can operate how it's supposed to operate under the city's ordinances. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Is anybody ready to make a motion yet? I guess my question is then, if we don't make a motion, either one way or the other, does it just go on to the city commission? Or tell me what the process is.
I honestly don't know the answer to that, but I do believe yes. I mean, we still would have to get it up to city commission for final determination, so they would do so without recommendation from the Liquor Control Board.
So I will tell the group that's an option. If no one wishes to make a motion, that is a possibility that we can just continue it on to the city commission. That's one option. It depends on what your wishes are. Lydia, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I do think it's our obligation to make a recommendation for city commission. I think we really need to. I think we need to do that.
Well, I'll make a motion then that we proceed with the recommendation to the city council for the revocation of the liquor license for Club Africa.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Do we have a second? So Nancy, my question is, if I'm the chair, if I want to step aside and make the second, and is that a possibility, or is that just for a motion?
I believe you can make the second and pass the gavel.
I will pass the gavel, and I will make the second. That gives us the opportunity for more questions and discussion.
I guess I'm not ready to revoke it yet. I would be in favor of a longer-term suspension and allowing them more time to get experienced management in place so that Ms. Brown could shadow that person and learn from someone who has a stellar background in management. And I don't know, I'm not privy with the liquor industry, but what kinds of educational opportunities are there for them so that this can be a successful venture? I think it is an important investment in our community, and I really want to see this work. But I feel like this is just being rushed through for the sole factor of getting it through so we can get going and start making money. And I don't want to see that happen. I want this to be done right because I want you to be successful. So for me, I would be in favor of a longer-term suspension while all of these puzzle pieces get put together, and you give us an outline of the management, server training is up to par, and we can feel good about granting you a license.
if I could I just want to amplify what Kay said. I really agree with what she said. I'm not ready to revoke either. I think Ms. Brown is clearly passionate, and I have no doubt that she will be able to learn how to manage. But this is already an up and running business. I've been sitting here thinking I'd like to ask, why isn't a different general manager being brought in with some more experience just to get this thing going? I would support what Kay is suggesting, because I also really think that this business it needs some structural changes. I see a lot of promise in the list of changes that were provided, but I also recognize what my fellow commissioner mentioned with a business plan. I think redoing the suspension, another short-term suspension, to give this business some time to get Ms. Brown some additional experience and to get this thing going would be a real benefit to this business and would serve it well in the long term.
I would add.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I guess one of my concerns is that, with the fourth application, we continue to see the same people involved with the key decisions with this organization. And the fact that we talked about Mr. O'Main, to me, kind of speaks to the decision-making that's been happening. I'm not certain how that individual could be picked as a manager, given kind of the information that we have. I don't have a lot of confidence right now, based on the fact that there hasn't been anything introduced other than one of the owners is now going to step in and take on a management role with no previous experience in that area. I do appreciate the passion. I think it would be wonderful if we saw something that gave me a little bit more hope. At this point, I just question whether or not we're going to see that.
Any other comments or questions? I would add, this is a very valuable asset, this business, and for you the owners, it's a very valuable asset, and so I think it's very important for you. What I would like to see is professional management, somebody hired that's a professional that has experience, because this is also a very valuable asset to our city. And it could be a great thing, a great draw, but it's got to be safe, and you have to have professionals running this. That would be my encouragement. So I don't know if that makes sense, but I think it's kind of interesting. A lot of our comments are similar for everybody up here, and so this is not an easy decision and very challenging. Any other comments?
So
Go ahead.
If I may, Commissioner Pepcorn, I just on those comments, and I think it's clear. And I'm going to ask you, don't vote for supporting a revocation, then give them the opportunity to do this. I understand what you're saying. Realize 14 days, 15 days for us to be able to help guide them. I think we can help these guys do this right. And I understand what you're saying. And to be honest, I recognize what you're saying. So I'm asking you guys, continue the suspension rather than revoking. That's taking away a big asset from some people that want to try hard. Miss Blue wants to try hard to make this go. So please consider, if it's going to be forwarded to the commission on a suspension basis, to allow some of these things to get in play and let us have the opportunity to show you we can do it right.
Thank you for the comments. But Brett, I will say this, you should have been involved a long time ago. It wasn't the city that made you on this particular timeline, just to clarify that.
And I agree with that. I really do. But at the same time, they're showing you, there's been comments made. I haven't seen any steps. They're taking steps. I think some of this stuff is not easy, like you said. And so don't punish them and don't punish the person that sold the liquor license to them. Let us do this right. I know we can. So that's my comment.
Thank you.
I just want to say I agree with the African Club Council. I think the fact that they hired counsel is a great step, and and we're seeing promise for that. So just to say, I am planning on voting against this motion, and if it fails, would like to support a motion to renew the suspension.
Very good. Any other comments or questions? Steve, my question is, do you think we should do a roll call? Would that be possible, or would you rather not to do that?
Yeah, I think we'll have to do a roll call. It sounds like it's going to be a split vote.
Okay. So if there's any other comments or questions, now's the time. Otherwise, if it's all right, we'll proceed with the roll call vote. Steve, call the roll, please.
This is for what?
This is for the motion made, and this is for the.
The motion was to revoke.
Okay, thank you.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, Stibbe? Aye. Pepcorn?
Aye.
Schwartzwalter?
No,
Nelson?
No.
Tackett?
No.
Motion fails. And so now we can have another motion, or we can adjourn the meeting. That's our option. So if anybody wishes to make another motion, now's the time.
I would make a motion that we continue the suspension and allow them time to get another business plan and management in place.
We have a
I
motion.
would second that, Kay.
Yep, we have a motion and a second. And if it's okay, since I'm the chair, I'll make the first comment. The thing that I fear with that is if we continue the suspension, the business won't survive. I think if you ask them, if the suspension, I agree with your points, but if you don't have any money at a certain point, they're not going to survive. That's my comment. So.
Mr. Brudvik, what's your comment when it comes to the time needed for the revocation for you to be able to do some of the things? I agree the business plan is more of a reactionary type of response, which we've seen a number of times with this situation. What's your perspective on the time needed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a double-edged sword. I think we need enough time to do this right for you guys, and I think we can. And I don't want to speak on behalf. I don't know what the organization's opinion on it is, but I mean, I think, I would think 30 days would be, if we can get it in within 30 days or sooner, and we could request a special meeting. If we get it in sooner, we would. Yeah, they're bleeding. I mean, their revenue's down significantly, so they need to get this back going. But you guys are right; it needs to be going right. It has to be operated in the right direction, and I think that they're all genuine in wanting to do that. So I don't know exactly what to request. I would say 30 days, and we'll try and get it in sooner if we can.
Any other comments or questions?
I would support 30 days, but along with that, again, it's not just about the business plan. I'd like to see some evidence that Ms. Brown is finding herself in this position as general manager and able to actually make these changes. So several of these changes can be done, in the restaurant and during regular hours. I think I'd like to see that in place as well, if we could address that.
Okay, can I say something?
Sure.
Can you give me some idea what you want to see me do?
Yes. Well, Kay mentioned the possibility of hiring somebody with managing experience that you could shadow for some period of time.
Okay.
There's also management courses. If you were participating in those, you mentioned that you're already in school.
Yeah.
And if you could show that, it's because I completely hear you that that you can learn, and I believe you can. And so those are just some suggestions, just to, so you can kind of tell us how well you're doing after 30 days, how you've been implementing the changes, how it's been going.
Thank you very much.
I would also ask that whoever the manager is that you are going to be working alongside and shadowing, that they're able to pass a background check, that I don't want to see issues of that we've been seeing in the past
Yes.
on these other applications.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions?
Just to thank Ms. Brown for asking for clarification there, because I don't want there to be misunderstandings. That we want to see success.
Any other comments or questions? Otherwise, would you mind repeating the motion for us so we know what we're voting on, and then we'll do roll call vote again?
Hopefully I've got this right. What I've got is continue the suspension for 30 days to get a management team in place. Is that accurate? Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second, and roll call, please.
Schwartzwalder,
Yes.
Tackett,
Yes.
Stibbe,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Pepcorn.
No. So that passes 4-1. That is the end of our session. Thank you very much. It was very productive from everybody's perspective.
So we still will have a hearing on Monday. This will go to city commission with a recommendation to continue a 30-day suspension.
So that is what will happen. Everybody is aware of that. And so with that, it is 3:18 and we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.